Assalamu alaikum, this is Sehrish Sarwar. Every Thursday at 12 pm, join me right here on Radio Dawn for The Inner Journey, a space where faith meets healing and science meets the soul. As a hypnotherapist and a life coach, I'll take you through powerful conversations, reflections, and tools to help you overcome challenges, find balance, and reconnect with your true self. So tune in every Thursday at 12 p.m. for the Inner Journey. With me, Sehrish Sarwar, only on Radio Dawn. Your community, your voice, your connections. Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters, and welcome back to Radio Dawn 107.6 FM. You tuned into the Inner Journey show with me, your host, Sehrish Sarwar. For the new listeners, I am a hypnotherapist and a life coach, and we go through this journey every Thursday at 12 p.m. And the whole purpose of this journey is we will learn about mental health and well-being awareness, and where we can understand ourselves on a deeper level. The whole purpose of this show is where we can understand about mental health and how we can apply some strategies to live a better quality life. So there are some days we have guests with us where we can understand a bit more understanding regarding the mental health from professionals. So today, alhamdulillah, I've got a guest who has done master in clinical psychology and he works in the mental health field. So I'd like to welcome Hannan on the show. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good. Alhamdulillah, good.
Alhamdulillah. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time out and giving us your valuable time to come and have a chat about the mental health side of it. And I know that you've got very interesting topics that I was really looking forward to, which I'm sure a lot of listeners will be able to relate to. So tell us a bit more about yourself. Just introduce yourself.
So I have a master's in clinical psychology, and I have a good range of experience working in the mental health sector, both with adults and with children with a variety of complex needs, and with children stuff like autism, ADHD. So yeah, I think I've worked with quite a variety of people experiencing mental health issues.
Mashallah, that's amazing. I mean, ADHD and neurodivergent, I think this is becoming such a thing. And we will like to, inshallah, dive into a bit more, because I know that there's mental health. Being neurodiverse is actually not a mental health thing. So inshallah, we'll definitely come into it. So tell us, you said that about the men. Let's start with the men first. Tell us about the men's mental health, because I know that what we have experienced so far, men find it hard to actually discuss about their emotions and be vulnerable compared to women. So do you think men experience mental health? But before actually we go into it, I want to hear what is mental health from your perspective.
Yeah, great question. Mental health is our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. So a lot of people think if you refer to mental health, it's always a negative thing. In general, having healthy mental health is also good, and I feel like it should be talked about a lot more. And mental health affects how we think, feel, act, and it also helps determine how we handle just life in general, like stress, relating to others, making choices in your life. And just like physical health, everyone has mental health, and it can vary from being very healthy to being very poor. And I think it's really important to remember that mental health is a spectrum. So you don't just have good or bad mental health. You know, there's some days where it could just be just average, and it can change depending on what's happening in your life, even what's happening, you know, with your physical health, your biology, if you're going through anything to do with that. And a really important one as well is your environment. So it could be work environment, family environment, your friends, all of that can affect your mental health.
Oh, great. I love the sound of that because, yes, it comes down to what is your baseline, isn't it? So they would be, not every day would be perfect, but it comes down to how quickly you bounce back. And then, yes, absolutely. And it really comes down to how you relate to others and whether you're having a happy or better mental health. Because I
Exactly. Yeah.
remember I would talk about my show quite a bit that everyone has a mental health, because a lot of people say that, oh, I don't have a mental health kind of thing. And I'm like, no, you can say that you have a good mental health and not a poor mental health, but everyone has a mental health. And this is where there's that stigma in our community that would you want to work on the mental health or make it, because I think you can have mental health, but how positive it can be. So you can bounce
Yeah.
back and work with through challenges quite in a healthy way. And yes, absolutely. And tell us about the mental health. Let's go there. And coming back to, like I said, that when I do clients, I see that women open up a lot more quicker than men.
Mm.
And I know this is a bit of a societal thing, but tell me that, do you think men experience mental health differently than women?
Yeah, so I feel like definitely they do. And the thing with men's mental health is that often men won't fit like the textbook definition of something like depression.
Mm,
So with women, they might report the internalizing symptoms, like if they're feeling sad for a long time
mm,
or if they're feeling worthless. Men, it would often be externalizing their symptoms. So it could be anything like being more irritated, having a shorter temper than they normally would, even things like taking risks that they wouldn't normally do when they were in like a healthy mental health state. And a really common one as well is overworking.
mm,
So working more than they normally would, like coming home from their normal 9 to 5 job and then doing more work at home, trying to distance themselves from their family, their friends, all of that, just in order to avoid their thoughts, really. Um,
mm,
so I would say it's quite different from women. And I feel like the reason for that, well, one of the reasons definitely, is that from a young age, a lot of men are socialized under the philosophy of you need to be a man, don't
mm.
talk about your feelings. If you're feeling sad, just get over it. And they've been taught that emotional vulnerability is like a sign of weakness
Yes.
or
Mm,
a loss of status. So, they feel like if they talk about it, people see them as being less of a man. And something that I've researched during my studies is the gender role conflict,
mm,
which is the psychological strain produced when gender roles limit a person's ability to express their true self. So I feel like a lot of men may be thinking, "Oh, I'm the pillar of the family. I need to, I need to work. I need to feed my kids and stuff," and that will put their mental health sort of on the back burner.
mm,
So they feel like that, they have no time to talk about it, or they have no one to talk about it with. And I do have some interesting stats.
mm,
Women are more likely to be diagnosed with something like depression
mm.
in the UK, but 75% of suicides in the UK are men. So it just shows that, even if they're going through and won't go to the GP or to a professional and try and get diagnosed and try and get help. And it suggests that men are struggling just as much as women, but they're reaching the point of crisis before they ever speak out or, get to speak to someone about their problems.
No, oh my God, this is so amazing to hear. And especially the structure that you've put it down. Because, yes, absolutely. Like I started off with, the men do struggle. And again, you mentioned that it's because it's a societal or kind of a belief that's been put in men from a young age that you're not allowed to be vulnerable. That's a sign of weakness. And I think this is where, coming down to the status that you've given me, which is the man likely to be. And I remember when I used to work in mental health hospital, that was used to be the case. A woman will give a lot of signs to
Yeah.
say that, okay, they are going through this. They can express it perhaps a bit more better. But where with men, it's not much of expressive. It's like going in action mode and taking those
Yeah,
steps. And this is where it's really hard. And this is what we again trying to build here as well, that where men can feel quite vulnerable and speak their truth. And there's so many good things that you've mentioned, coming back to men externalizing it in a reactive way.
yeah,
This is amazing because that is actually true, because women, I believe that when they're going through the mental health, they will withdraw from what's going on outside. They will go
yeah,
within. They don't want to talk to people, or they just be a bit more like just going avoiding that thing. But with men, yes, they'll start overworking, externalizing it. Like sometimes it's the anger issue, or and distracting themselves, which means they just go into a work mode. Absolutely. And I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of the listeners will be able to relate to that, because men tend to kind of, okay, I might as well just do 2 extra hours than sitting at home,
yeah,
because then you have to deal with your thoughts.
exactly. Yeah,
And this is where it gets hard. They don't want to think. And coming back to the gender one that you mentioned, that it's something that the men say, that we have to fulfill this responsibility,
yeah,
that as a man we have to. If we don't, then that means that we're not man enough. And I think that can really have a huge impact on their mental health. And there's so many things you've already mentioned, which actually clearly shows that, looking back when I was experiencing with men and women, working with them for the mental health, yes, it was coming down to men do not say it's more internal, but you have to observe their actions.
yeah,
With
exactly.
Yeah, and women can be a bit more external with their communication. So would you say that? What would you say? Why do they often struggle to seek help? What would you say about that?
I feel like the main thing is just awareness. So a lot of men, especially in their social circles of around their friends or family, when they're talking with other men, I feel like mental health is not really a topic that ever comes up. I mean, it's getting better now,
Mm.
but yeah, definitely, it's not a topic that's talked about very often. Like if you just if you see your friends and you say, "Oh, how are you doing?" They'll just say, "Oh, I'm good," even though inside they're going through
Mm.
something, but they feel like it's not the right place to talk about it, or it's not the right people to talk about it with. So I feel like
Mm.
there's a lot of the lack of awareness would be the main thing, and then the second thing would definitely just be that they're taught from a young age, just to be a man. So mental health is really on the back burner for the majority of men.
Yeah, and I think this is where I know that since COVID, it's become a thing, the mental health, right? And
Yeah,
I know before that, but even now as well, I know that when I'm doing the workshop for mental health and well-being, about 80 to 90% is a woman. And
yeah,
I do want to encourage my brothers to actually show up for yourself. And I think it really comes down to how you said that it's about being vulnerable, because
yeah,
they feel like I don't need to talk about it, especially with a woman. I've realized that in a group environment is still empowering, because they feel they can speak if there's a safe space. But men, even from the other men, will feel, have their guards up, that they don't want to talk about it. But, oh yeah, it could be that they feel they're scared of getting judged,
yeah,
because we
yeah,
all feel that, isn't it? That, oh, what's this person going to think, that I'm quite weak? Again, coming back to what you're thinking, and and again coming back to the message that you say, that is the self awareness, or becoming more aware of the people around you, and the more they can normalize. I know since COVID has gotten out there, people can talk about mental health, but it really comes down to, and until it's a bit late. It's only when it's really taken a toll on you, where you cannot even come to work. That's when you're like, okay.
yeah,
Even then, you will think about, okay, I'm going to go to doctors and tell the doctor so I can get support, but you still wouldn't tell people around you, isn't it?
yeah, exactly.
And tell me a bit more about the environment that you mentioned. Like, environment can have an impact.
Yeah, our environment is one of the biggest factors.
Mm.
So I feel like with a lot of men, especially with families, like they have kids, they have their wife, they really don't want to seem weak in front of them,
Mm.
especially their children. A lot of men think, well, it is true that their children look up to them as a role model. So they would think, oh, I don't want my children to see me like this. I want them to think I'm strong, which is a good point. But I feel like children should also see that, if their father's being vulnerable, the children will learn that, yeah, that's okay. I can do that as well. So environment is with family. That's a really big factor. And then with friends, as you
Mm.
already said, the fear of being judged, the fear of being less of a man around your friends, even if you've known them for a long time, like since childhood. I feel like, being vulnerable with them, it is quite rare among men. It doesn't happen very often.
Absolutely. And again, whatever you're saying is spot on because absolutely environment make a difference. And I think as a father, yes, you have this role model that your kids are looking up to. You want to be set an example. But that's a really good thing that you've said that it needs to start from home because even those men who struggle with that, they've seen their father trying to live up to this, not a stereotype, I would say, but it's like this a status that men's
Yeah,
supposed to be strong-minded and leading the family. And I think this is where it's a pressure indirectly on them to say that you have to be in a certain way. And if they can start from home, the kids would be learning it's okay to be vulnerable, which
yeah,
means that we are breaking that cycle, isn't it?
exactly.
Amazing. I love that. And again, environment, yes, it's important to actually create this kind of environment where, yes, you have to be, in a certain role model, but really, truly having this one person that you can go to where you are able to be just yourself and
Yeah,
be able to vulnerable. And this is, I think, where we speak about counseling or coaching, like I do with life coaching, and coming down to you need to have just one person who can hear you. And I think this is a lot with the men that where they just want to be heard. A lot with, I say, with the women and kids as well, but I think with men because they like to have their guards up and not be vulnerable because of obviously being a fear of and getting judged. But it really comes down to having that safe space where they can speak about what they are feeling. And if it necessarily doesn't mean that they need advice or needs fixing, they just want to let it out of the system. What
yeah.
would you say? The what are the primary triggers for poor mental health in men today? And what are the red flags should your friends or family look out for?
Yeah. So I would say, especially in the modern times now, being a man is tied to, having a purpose and provision. But especially within recent years, I feel like even stuff like the unstable economy, a lot of men have a fear of failing as being the provider for their family, and that would lead to chronic stress
Mhm.
and the loneliness epidemic, which, as you said before, after COVID, it's become sort of like a keyword that that's been going around. But it is definitely true. The loneliness epidemic hits men quite hard, and the thing with environment, as we spoke on before, men often have their friendships are based on activities. So especially if you're working, you're busy all throughout the day, and then the time where you'll see your friends would be something like going to the gym, or playing football, or playing paddle, which is popular now. But there's a real lack of disclosure-based friendships, which is friends you can actually sit down and talk to, because the only time you'll really see your friends is just going to do activities, and there's not much time to speak with them if you're going through anything. In terms of the red flags, as we mentioned before, it is quite different from women, which are more likely to speak about it more. But some of the red flags would be social withdrawal, so canceling plans, stopping hobbies, stopping going out with your friends, with your family, just to get away from everyone and isolating yourself, which can be really bad.
Mhm.
Another one is escapism, which overworking would count as that, just doing anything to just avoid your thoughts. So it could be overworking, or just doing anything more than you would normally do, even like playing games more than you'd normally do, watching TV all day after work, not wanting to engage with anything. And a big thing with men is physical complaints. So
Mm.
if they're going through something mentally, they would, they could report it as, oh, I've been getting a lot of headaches. I've been having migraines, just because it feels safer to talk about physical health rather than mental health. So that is also a big thing. So, for example, let's say if you're a man and one of your friends is, often complaining about their physical health, I feel like it would be a good idea just to ask how their mental health is doing as well.
Oh,
And a big thing as well is, you can definitely recognize this with your friends and family, is a loss of humor. So if, in the past they've been really funny, bubbly, and, always, loud, having great conversations, and then all of a sudden it just stops, like they fall flat, maybe even become cynical, that's a major red flag. And I feel like that's a really good one, that you would notice pretty much straight away.
I love the sound of that, especially. Thank you again for sharing all that information because I feel like that's so insightful and absolutely. And I love the part where you said that if the men are working a lot or they are complaining about physical pain, maybe it's nice to ask them that how you doing, mentally, how you coping. And I think this is something I think a key point I want listeners to take, that if the physical complaint, because again, it comes down to what you've just said, that maybe it's easier to complain about the physical, but actually, truly, it's not just physical.
Yeah,
It's probably manifesting in physical way, but it's probably more with the psychological. And if you can really ask them that how you're feeling emotionally or mentally, and you just observing them how they actually react would be a huge sign. I mean, we've got control of our body, but when it comes to emotional and mental health, I don't think you can control, like people be able to see. You need the right eye to actually observe and the right questions. Absolutely. And loss of humor, again, coming back to, you will see that the person's not acting their self
yeah, exactly.
and they're acting. And escapism, I think, is one of the other one. That's why you'll see people are becoming workaholic. They're working so much. They're picking up overtime. They might be thinking to themselves that, okay, do you know what? I'm making extra money, but really, truly, you're distracting yourself from something that's going on within. And
Yeah,
that's what I always say on my show, that the more you suppress your emotions, the bigger they are getting. It's like a snowball effect. The quicker you can resolve something that's going on inside is the quicker you'll come out of it. But
yeah.
the bigger it is becoming, the more time it will take for you to resolve or process that.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I feel like, just adding on to the physical complaints one,
Mm,
a big thing with mental health is, the first step they always say is just to speak to someone about it.
mm,
And with the physical complaints, that's like a safer way, that a lot of men feel like, just to speak about it and let someone know, oh, I'm going through something. Well, they're not saying it with, like, they're going through their mental health issues, but they're going through something else. And it can also, be helpful for them just to vent to someone. While it might not be about the specific thing they're going through, but just venting in general does help a lot.
absolutely. And again, like, how you mentioned that someone just to hear, because I know that when I get clients, some of the men clients, and they say that, we just want to just let it out. And we don't necessarily means the advice or fixing, because I think men are quite good like that.
Yeah,
Because logically, they're great with fixing and more solution based approach man has. But yes, sometimes they just want to let it out that this is how they're feeling inside, and that starts the great tone for them to, you know, for having a better quality life or healthier, and managing challenges a lot more better. Thank you for sharing that. Coming to, what specific barriers do Muslim men face when accessing support, and how we can we bridge that gap between the faith and the clinical psychology? A very good question.
yeah.
Would you
I
say?
feel like, with we mentioned before, after COVID, there's been a big discussion about men's mental health, but I feel like there is a lack of discussion with Muslim men's mental health. So there is a bit of a stigma within the community, and a lot of men fear that, if they say, "Oh, I'm depressed," they'll be judged as being weak in their faith, which is definitely not true. Um, but people would give them advice like, just pray more, pray your 5 times a day. It will help a lot. While that is great advice and it will definitely help,
Mm,
it can make men feel like I'm depressed because I'm not a great Muslim and it's
mm,
coming from God, which is it's not really true. Like, of course, you should pray your 5 times a day, do du'as, but there is more to it that you can do, to help your mental health out.
mm,
And there is a heavy cultural weight going back to being like a pillar of the family, especially in men. So if a man admits that he is struggling, he'll feel like he's letting down, his parents, his wife, his children, and that can lead to them feeling even shameful about speaking
mm,
out, which is obviously not ideal. And I feel like something that our community should definitely work on, making sure men know it's fine to be vulnerable, and it can also be a good thing. So I thought, something to help overcome the barrier. It could be something simple like when you go to Friday prayer for Jummah. I feel like imams should sometimes state that if you're going through anything, of course pray, but seeking therapy, seeking counseling, that is also sunnah. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he also sought support during his year of sorrow. So if they speak more about that, obviously it doesn't have to be every week, but
mm,
even if they say it once or twice, there will be men in that are going there to pray, that could help them a lot. And also, I feel like mosques could create more spaces for men to go to, even stuff like sports leagues, which men, I think, would be more likely to go to, like football, badminton, paddle,
mm,
something active. That could be a great like entry into the community and could lead to deeper, more vulnerable conversations. And I think that teaching men that their minds, even if they're going through anything bad, it's not Allah punishing you or anything. Um, you should seek help, go to a doctor. Like, if, let's say, for example, if someone broke their leg, they would go to the doctor straight away. But with mental health, men will be like, "Oh, I'll get over it. It's fine," and it could lead to bad consequences. And yeah, just as you would go to a doctor to seek like medical attention if they broke a bone, you should also seek attention from a doctor for a broken spirit. So
mm.
that's really important, and it should be spoken about more in our community for sure.
No, absolutely. I loved every single thing you've said. Absolutely, I agree. And I think that the part where you said about mosques building that, and I think a lot of mosques are working on that, which is mashallah brilliant to see because I know that at the moment Creamia's got this after school club, or basically they have like badminton, so they are creating that space. I was talking to someone who arranges this, and they said for the boys they've got like different kind of games with the young youth, because I know again we will talk about the youth, but coming back to men, they like to be physically working out. Again, we know that when you're physically active, it helps your mental health actually.
Yeah,
And I think this is where it can come down to if you're, and I think men definitely use that coping mechanism to, they rather go to gym or they rather be, being physically active, playing games, if not physically, then at least mentally.
yeah,
And I think that's what we can actually learn from men, that learning a bit more like, okay, go out, do it, because we have seen that when we are mentally relaxed, when we are working out, even physically, there's a hormones, that's getting released in our body that helps us calm down. We can look at the problem and come to solution much more quicker compared to if you're just spiraling into it and we just all we're doing just thinking about it. And I think this is where I think, yeah, coming back to it and building spaces in mosques, I think that's a brilliant idea. And it's taking place. I know that some of the mosques do, I'm sure Kareemia does as well, this counseling place where you can come and talk about it. But then it really comes down to if our brothers are listening, and if they can even pass on that message to say that it's okay to reach out.
Yeah.
And I think this is the message you're trying to say, and I will emphasize on that, that there are facilities available, and I do talk about it here a lot, that there's this place where you can get the counseling or the life coaching, something that where you don't have to talk about where you are struggling a lot, but it's all about letting it out and speaking to someone where you're not getting feeling of that you're getting judged. And some of the key words that you mentioned about getting judged or feeling shameful, I think those two are huge in our community.
Yeah.
And I think this is where we avoid those conversations which we need to have to be able to be productive in our life. And relating it back to Islam, alhamdulillah, Allah has provided us, Islam has provided us every single thing. And I think this is quite huge with the youngsters as well, that when they go to parents, and I do talk about it quite a bit on my workshop I do with the younger girls or ladies, that I say that when kids are struggling as well, we normally say to them, "Is this is the thing that we always have heard, that you're disconnected from your religion, so go
Yeah.
back to praying." And this is where it comes down to this. This now you was already feeling quite shameful or feeling guilty that I should be the one that's taking the lead, but I'm struggling. And I think this is where when you mentioned that, oh, you're disconnected from Islam, now you're feeling even more worse, because now you're thinking that, oh, I'm not even a good Muslim, like, and this is the conversation internally happening, you won't see it, but now you're withdrawn even more. And it really comes down to that, again, you said that it's not a punishment from Allah, because Allah said it very clearly that I will give you test. If you're a believer, you would be tested. And
Exactly.
it's when you come out on the other side, you will be given rewarded. So I remember that the pains that I had to go through, I was always able to pass through them, being patient. That's the first one. And the second one was that there's I'm tested because my faith needs to be a bit more deeper.
Yeah.
It's a test from there. And it's only, Allah said as well, that with the difficult there's a ease. So
Exactly.
always looking on the other side, that yes, maybe there's a pain now, but you got to focus on what ease is coming after that, so it makes it easier. Mashallah, I love everything that you've mentioned, that we can look out for. So what would you say, again, like, I think coming back to youth, especially girls and boys, how do social media specifically affect men, particularly within the Muslim community, would you say?
Yeah, social media definitely is a big thing affecting mental health, both for children and for adults. But especially for teenagers, like later teenagers going into their adulthood, I feel like it can be a big factor on their mental health. So they might, go on social media, just scroll on Facebook or Instagram, and they'll see like a 18, 19, 20-year old, and they have like a big car, a big house, a private jet, for example, a lot of money, or even like the perfect physique, which I feel like that definitely affects both women and men. Just seeing stuff like that on a daily basis, it can make people feel like, oh, I failed at life. There's no point even trying. And that's called status anxiety. So the constant fear that you're at the bottom of the social hierarchy, which of course we know it's not true. A lot of people just live the normal average life, but on social media, the people posting are the ones that have, all the money, all the cars, the big house, and it can make a lot of men feel like, I'm not good enough. Why am I even trying? And more specifically to the Muslim community, uh, scrolling on social media, especially on TikTok, now I've noticed as well, if you're on the Islamic For You page side of TikTok, you'll see there's like a culture of perfect Muslim influencers. So the way they showcase their life, like they're praying 5 times every day, never missed, always going to the mosque, and it can make regular men feel like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not a good Muslim. I'm not connected with Allah enough, and it can lead to an identity crisis, which all affects mental health. And yeah, and the fact that social media, everyone's on it as well. I feel like that is one of the biggest things leading to poor mental health in men.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more because this is what's happening in the youth as well as the men as well. And the way you put it, it makes so much sense because we see, oh, I was 21 when I became millionaire, and someone's who's looking at like working so hard. I know the social media and the AI and everything has made things a lot more easier. But back in days, like if you look at back, someone who's like 35, 40, 45 now, those easier quick ways were not there at that
Yeah,
time, so they have worked really hard, but that can really make them question that 21 years old becoming that way I'm at. And again, identity crisis, such an important keyword here, that a lot of people are struggling with that, and especially with men. Again, it's how they see themselves, that we have to have the role model, how we're going to show up to our kids like son, like how our boys is going to be looking at how our father is actually trying to live and trying to make that stability for the household. And absolutely, I agree with that, not letting that get to you, because as you probably be aware as well, that what we have heard is most of the people are struggling behind the
yeah,
doors.
exactly.
And just because they have this social media platform, because I know some people, and again, I've heard it a lot on the social media, that they use social media as their way of processing mental health issues, because they go back and look at those videos that they've created. Maybe it won't be 100% true, but because it makes them feel better and significant, they feel happier in their life. But
Yeah,
how is that projecting on other people to say that we've got perfect life? It can really make people question. And I think this is where people really need to understand and look back and on their struggles they have lived and how they've come over it. And this is the way we forget how far we have come. The struggles and challenges we experienced. How did we bounce back on that? And focusing less on what's people doing on, especially on social media, because it can really lead to, again, they not feeling good enough.
yeah,
And this is something that I've seen huge, whether it be a woman or a man or a girl, that it really comes down to not feeling good enough. This is the biggest reason, I would say, one of the biggest reason that people have mental health, poor mental health, is because they're not feeling good enough. They cannot perform then very well in their life. Very, very important. And status anxiety, again, comes down to it, feeling like, no, I should be, comparing themselves, that I should be doing this by this age, why I'm not.
yeah,
Very important. And this is again for all my listeners to say that, if you can pass it on to even your kids as well, that not everything we see is the reality. And we need to focus on ourselves, our lives, and what we been doing in our life, how far we have come compared to what other people, because we don't live with them, we don't know whether it's even true or not. So, how would you say, again? I know we're going towards the last few minutes of the show, but it's been, I think I might have to bring you on again. I think I might have to, because it's such insightful information. And I know that we were going to talk about a bit of ADHD as well in youth, but we'll try to squeeze in a couple of more things. And
yeah,
inshallah, I think I'd like to have you again back if it's okay with you,
yeah. Of course,
because
of course.
brilliant. So, what would you say? Again, we were talking about youth. Why are mental health issues rising among youth today? And what do you think are the most common challenges you see in your, when you're practicing the mental health field?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's a big difference in the reason that mental health issues are rising among youth today, in this generation compared to previous generations. We already spoke about social media, which is a big thing, but it's just to do a lot with just devices in general. So the youth of today, their brain is sort of like always on. Unlike previous generations, today's youth don't really have like a rest state where they're not on a device, they're not watching TV, they're not playing games. Apart from the time they're at school, a lot of, I would say the majority of children, they'll come home from school and then straight away they're on their iPad, they're on their phone, they're video calling their friends, they're speaking to their friends on PS5. And the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that handles stress and planning, is still developing until the mid 20s. So they say around 25. So, the youth of today, from the time, they were a toddler all the way until the age of when they reach 25, their brain's always been on. It's been constant notifications, digital noise, and it's like they're always in high alert. And also, another thing would be academic and future pressure. So, children now, even like GCSEs, SATs, they've all changed quite a lot from the previous generation. So, there used to be coursework that would, determine part of your grade, and then the exam. But now it's just all exams. So, they're being tested more than ever. And another thing with social media that we spoke on a bit, there's social media and TV. There's not often you'll see a positive thing about the future. So if let's say a child's in the living room and the parents are watching the news, there's very, very rarely anything positive going on, and that can affect their brain while it's still developing. And I would say the main thing is loneliness. So while being, they're more connected than ever with their phones or their devices, but there's a lot less places for in-person connection. So I remember when I was a child growing up, I would go to a mosque madrasa every day after school, and it's a great place, obviously, just to learn about the Quran and Islam, but it was also a place, your friends would be there, you can speak to them about stuff. But now most children, they're just doing it on their iPads, on Skype, for example. They're doing their mosque lessons, so there's not many places for them to go after school or during the holidays. And adding to that, what I said previously about nothing good going on, it also makes parents less likely to want to let their children go to the park with their friends, which in the past was a big thing. But as you all know, now parks are getting emptier and emptier. There's not many third places for children to go without supervision, where they can just have a chat with their friends, like play sports activities. And as you mentioned earlier, physical activity is a great thing for your mental health. And I feel like children now, there's not many places for them to do it, or it's just not a thing that's really common nowadays. So I feel like all of that together, with just devices being the main thing, would be that's the reason that there's a rise in mental health issues with the youth today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, you said everything, like ticking off the academic. Again, there's a lot of pressure. And I
Yeah,
think this is where we either go into, I know that when we're doing the coping mechanism strategy, I always tell my clients, like, there's escape, freeing or freeze, or, just letting go. And I think this is where the freeze or the escapism comes from, that, they rather distract themselves and get away from the work that needs to be doing because it's too much pressure. Again, going to school, and then there's a lot of exams. There's a pressure of making sure you've got the right grades. And then coming down to the social media, again, you're absolutely right that I don't think that there's really that you'll see a positive news that what's great happening around the world. And
yeah,
it's a lot more like what's going wrong around the world. And I remember very well when I was young that, yes, my dad, we used to be listening to the news the first thing in the morning. And again, like I always say, that it comes down to like how you're going to start your day. And if you're starting your day with the negativity, you're going to manifest that throughout your
yeah,
day. And the prefrontal cortex, again, the conscious mind, I say, is developing. Absolutely, it's at its highest form. I would say that it starts to come after 12 years old.
yeah,
The conscious mind, which is analytical mind, but before that, what we always say, that kids are like sponges. They will take on anything that's on board. This is where they are wiring their programs, like how they're supposed to be kind of living their adult life. But
yeah,
it can go up to 25, that way the kids are still evolving and developing, and not being able to have the physical interaction. And the loneliness that you said is huge, and kids don't realize, and neither do parents, But when even I have worked with some of the kids and I have observed it, that loneliness is something that can sabotage the way the kids is performing, not just academically, but actually in their personal life. And again, relying on even the madrasa that you said, yes, true, that everything's going online. Online is so
Yeah,
much safer. And I think because we're trying to have our kids a bit more safety, because obviously we listen to social media, what's
yeah,
happening around the world, we feel that it's safe to have our kids doing everything from home. They
exactly.
can do the madrasa from home. I know some of the tuitions that's taking place at home. If people were given option, they probably won't even send the kids to school. They rather just have teams on and then get or some of the parents actually have seen that they have started homeschooling.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think indirectly what that's doing is building that not trusting the world in kids' mind. And I think this
exactly.
is where they are having the loneliness and they having the isolation, such an important thing. Just quickly before we go, what would you say that why with the school, would you say why is early identification so critical, and what role do schools and support workers play in preventing these kind of crises?
Yeah, 100%. What you mentioned earlier about children being a sponge, it's true. The younger the child, the more plastic their brain is, meaning it's more moldable to stuff they see going on around them. They're more likely to pick it up. So I think if we intervene early
Mm.
in schools or after school clubs, I think it's really important to teach children emotional regulation skills, and the younger you teach them, the more likely they are to carry that on into their adulthood. And physically changing the way their brain handles stress for the rest of their lives is really important to do at a young age. So while they're still children, as you said, they're going to go through stressful periods like exams, or family stresses, friend stresses. So if they learn it at a young age, that it's all right to be vulnerable, it's all right to speak out, it will help them a lot going into adulthood. And I feel like the role of support is, schools are often the only place where children feel safe enough to show that they're struggling. So even an example with, if they're not with mental health, but if they're struggling with a certain subject at school, they're likely to ask the teacher, oh, can I get some help on this? And that is also a transferable skill that would help with their mental health. If they're struggling with something mentally, they're more likely to ask their parents, oh, I'm going through this, what can I do? Because of course children aren't going to know the answer of what they should do. And as we spoke about earlier, a while ago, that if the role models in the children's lives show that it's okay to be vulnerable, show that it's okay to speak out, and children learn that, they're a lot more likely to do it going into their teenage years, especially around puberty, where their hormones are everywhere. They can be thinking things that aren't true. They can be going through a lot of stuff. So an early start into them learning it's okay to speak out would help a lot. And I feel like with schools and support workers, it's not with children, it's not their job to fix the mental health problem, because it's not always possible with children. But provide a consistent safe place or a safe presence where the child, they feel like, oh yeah, I can speak out, I'm not going to be judged here. That is definitely really important, and it does all start at a really young age.
Yes, absolutely. Again, saying the right thing, because it comes down to that. Yes, school. I believe that the kids spend majority of their day in school, and there's the time they don't have a phone.
Yeah,
I mean, at home, we've got no choice but to give them that phone, because otherwise, we believe that they don't have much to do, especially if it's an only child. But
yeah,
in the school, they have no phone and they are really interacting with with the teachers. And I think this is where I believe the school actually does have a quite important role. And I believe there are some counseling support available on that side. But even if you look at outside the mental health, and you said it right, that because they are able to share that what they're struggling, because they all know that school is somewhere where you go to learn. So no, they know that this kind of okay, it's okay to ask there.
Yeah,
but that's probably not necessarily at home, because at home you have to be the good child, you have to be the
exactly.
one that's obedience. And yes, really coming back to what you've said, that school is supposed to be something. And I think this is where it's quite important for parents to have that good relationship with the teachers, because if they're able to have, they can have that backwards and forward communication, because sometimes the kids tend to listen teachers more than parents, and they know because there's a rules and discipline in place.
Yeah,
And this is where, if they can have the parents and the teachers can have good connections to say this is what they are felt at home, or their teachers have observed something like this, and they can pass it on to the parents, and parents can like look up for it. And so there's that chain, isn't it, like backwards and forward, where you can start building that trust, and absolutely making the kids feel that they can be vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable and talk about how they are feeling without getting judged. And I think this is a lot of the household falls under. I always tell the parents that having that friendly relationship with the kids, because we are at this age. I remember in my generation, whatever the parent says, that's it. That's the bottom line. We cannot question that. We cannot challenge that. But that's changed hugely in the
yeah,
generation now. Now the generation wants to know why. What's the reason behind it? And I
yeah,
think this is where a lot of parents get frustrated. They're like, "Why are you not listening?" Obviously, even parents have to ask themselves, "Why am I saying that?" And I think in a way, it's a good thing for the parents as well, because now they even question themselves. Okay, I'm saying it. Oh, it's because it's in our religion, or it's because if you go out without any adult, you're more vulnerable, especially with the girls. So I think it's definitely making the parents evolve more, understanding themselves, so they can explain to the children. And I think children are able to have that logical conversation, and definitely building that safe space at home as well.
yeah,
Because if you know that, I always normally say that with my daughter, I say that once a week, let's have that 1 hour where I'm your friend, I'm not your mother at that time. Talk to me anything that you feel that you couldn't speak to anyone else. And I have felt that actually, and she looks forward to it. And I think this is where, like, and again, I have done some relationship counseling between mother and the daughter, or the parents and the children. And they were used to see that hour where a mother is not a mother at that time. They are just there. And the child is there. They're having actually a mature conversation where mother cannot react because she's a mother. And the children, they feel like they can openly express without feeling, you need to be quiet. Can't talk to your parent like that. So I think having that safe space within our home, and with the right person that they already feel connected with. And I think that can really help them to start processing internally, especially the loneliness that you mentioned.
yeah,
I think this is huge, and pressure as well. You can see that, like, the social media is having such a big influence right now, that everyone feel that they need to feel the certain way. If
yeah.
they don't, they are not blending in. And I think this is where you can have that safe space with the children, and really emphasize on the way you are is amazing. You don't need to compare yourself. And again, thank you so much for all the information that you've given. I would look forward to the next one, because I know that we were going to speak about the ADHD and the neurodivergence. And I think that's a huge topic in itself.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think I'll look forward to, inshallah, looking forward to the next one. But for now, if you could say a last message to especially our brothers and the youth, what would you say, what they can do to start having a better, inshallah, and improved life?
I would say if there's one message to give, I would keep it quite short and just say, if you are going through something, just speak to someone, whether it be your friend, your family, whoever you feel safe enough to speak to, and just making that first step. It will be a great catalyst into a journey to increase your mental health, make it better.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah for that. And absolutely starting that first step. And again, coming back to it, doesn't mean that you need to fix straight away,
Exactly. Yeah.
but it's a step, step by step, see how you feel. Because it's only when you start to process bit by bit, you will have a full kind of a baseline, a great baseline where even if the challenges are occurring, you're able to bounce back quickly. Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah. Thank you so much, Hannan. It was a pleasure to have you on the show, and inshallah, I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you for your time.
No worries. Thank you, Jazakallah, for having me on. It's been great.
Thank you, Jazakallah. Alhamdulillah, it was such insightful information, everything. And I think men's mental health, again, when I was speaking to Hannan, when he mentioned about men's mental health, I thought that was a great topic to have, Alhamdulillah. And I really hope that you have gained some knowledge about yourself, especially to brothers, that you have gained some knowledge about your mental health, or something that you might feel internally, but you don't know how to express, how to feel. It's okay to express and be vulnerable, because we are humans. We are, and it does not mean that there's a question mark on how you are connected to Allah, because if you remember back in it must have been about third or fourth show, I spoke about that, how we are a building. Think of us as a building, and the top floor is the mental health, then there's a spirituality, and then there's emotional, and then there's the physical. Even though the physical is the most important because it's a foundation, but mental health is a lot important than anything else, purely because if we are not mentally okay, you would know how to spiritually connect with Allah. And yes, Alhamdulillah, this is where you become the better human, when you are connected with your Creator. But it really comes down to mentally, you should be able to process things, so emotionally you can connect with our Creator. So thank you so much for listening, and inshallah I will see you and guys very soon, and inshallah we will be coming up with some great topics, and inshallah I speak to you guys very, very soon. Jazakallah for listening and your time. Have a great day ahead. Assalamu alaikum, this is Sehrish Sarwar. Every Thursday at 12 p.m, join me right here on Radio Dawn for The Inner Journey, a space where faith meets healing and science meets the soul. As a hypnotherapist and a life coach, I'll take you through powerful conversations, reflections, and tools to help you overcome challenges, find balance, and reconnect with your true self. So tune in every Thursday at 12 p.m. for The Inner Journey. With me, Sehrish Sarwar, only on Radio Dawn. Your community, your voice, your connections.